Week 14 is here, and we've got a showdown in Motown. Can the Lions take another step towards owning the North, even with the depleted defense? Or will the Packers silence the roar, at least, for one night? Our Stacey Dales on the field ahead of this big-time Thursday night tilt. Seahawks are currently atop the NFC West, and Mike McDonald's D is doing work. Our Omar Ruiz will tell you how they plan to attack Kyler Murray and the Cardinals next. You can't go home again, but you can go back to Minnesota, where Kirk Cousins and the Falcons need a win in the worst way on Sunday. Our Brian Baldinger will be there. Actually, so will I. Thank God that stadium has a roof because the weather here sucks. Welcome inside with the Insiders alongside Judy Batista and Ian Rappaport. I am Tom Pelissero. Indeed, Week 14 does not get a whole lot bigger than this to kick things off. Lions-Packers. We'll get to a ton of other games, information around the league. Right now, let's go straight out to Detroit, where it's always a beautiful night for football when you're playing in a domed stadium. It's Ford Field. That's where we find our Stacey Dales, who will join us right after we show you the clinching scenarios. Pretty straightforward for the Detroit Lions. They clinch a playoff berth with a win against the Packers. As for the Minnesota Vikings, who take on the Falcons on Sunday, they are in with a win plus a Cardinals loss, plus a Rams loss. There's also a bunch of stuff with ties. Bottom line, they can win that game and then just, hang around the locker room for like 3.5 more hours and find out if they got in. Here's our Stacey Dales, who is on the field right now. Stacey, it's a interesting week. Obviously, both these teams played on Thanksgiving, so a relatively normal work week, but obviously a ton on the line for these teams.
Yeah, it's a huge NFC North matchup, Tom. Hello. And yes, they both played on Thanksgiving. They both won respectively. But the winner between these two in Week 9 in Green Bay were the Detroit Lions. And it was a messy affair. There's flurries outside here, but it was rainy, sideways kind of rain. And Jared Goff was outstanding. And I think if you're the Green Bay Packers coming in here, Tom, you want some revenge because you have lost 5 of the last 6 games that you have faced the Detroit Lions. So think about that. As much as we've started to love this rivalry, the Lions have really dominated it. Jared Goff, as you see him right here, he has been special this season. Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers, said he's playing, as we all know, at an MVP level. He had an 82% completion percentage in Week 9 against Green Bay at Lambeau Field. And so in talking to Zadarius Smith, it was an interesting conversation, pass rusher now for these Lions, facing his former team. He called it, to me, a revenge game because of some of the emotions and the career that he enjoyed there in Green Bay, really them releasing him with his injury in his 3rd season, he told me. But ultimately, he said, this team in Detroit, it is just built different. There's a hunger here now that he's joined this group, and they're going to be coming after, certainly coming after Jordan Love and company today, try to protect their home field. But understanding how good their quarterback's playing, they know they've got to match that intensity despite how banged up they are from an injury standpoint. It's actually remarkable, Tom, how banged up the Lions are, and they're still the 2nd best scoring defense in the National Football League under Aaron Glenn.
Flip side of this matchup, Stacey, the Packers, if the season ended today, would be the 6th seed. They'd be going on the road in the first round of the playoffs here. If they're going to keep this interesting in the NFC North, they've got to beat the Lions tonight. What's been the talk out of Green Bay entering a game against what is currently the NFC's #1 seed?
Yeah, the talk out of Green Bay and talking to them this week in preparation for this game, Tom, is they feel like they are getting markedly better each week since their bye, which was, by the way, the week after they faced the Lions in Week 9. So from that bye moving forward, they've won 3 in a row. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. And offensively, the quarterback is playing better. He's playing more efficiently. Remember back in Week 9 against the Lions, he had a bit of a groin injury. Well, they had that bye. He has looked different. He's had back-to-back games with no picks. In fact, when Jordan Love is a starting quarterback in the NFL, goes without throwing an interception, he's 11-2. With an interception or more, he's 6-11. So ball security has been a big part of their growth offensively. And then the other part is their running back. And of course, that is Josh Jacobs. Everything runs through him, as Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for these Lions, said this week. But for Detroit facing this group, and for Green Bay facing them, I should say, it's going to be all about how they can slow down. If their offense can keep pace with Jordan Love as efficiently as he's playing, Tom, if they can slow down the #1 scoring offense in football. As you know, the Lions average 32 a game. Kenny Clark said they've got to really get after the quarterback, pressure on Jared Goff here today. Obviously, slow down those running backs. But the big key for them, keep an eye on this later on as this game gets going, they want to bump those Lions receivers and really break the rhythm, because the more they can do that, the more they have time to get after the quarterback, Jared Goff, especially how he's played.
Stacey, thank you very much. A good one happening behind you in not that long, right there at Ford Field. As for the rest of the NFC playoff field, a lot of the drama that's left is about two divisions. It's about who comes out of the NFC South, who comes out of the NFC West, because when you look at the Vikings, who can wrap up a playoff berth this week, the Packers, who can wrap up a playoff berth this week, and then the Commanders, they've got some distance right now between themselves and the rest of the potential wild cards as we bring Judy and Ian back into the conversation. Judy, you heard Stacey alluding to the injuries that the Lions have. Dan Campbell said this week they got several guys they signed off practice squads since Thanksgiving who quite possibly are going to have roles in this game.
Yeah, well, 3 defensive linemen are out for this game. That tells you the situation they're in. And, you know, Stacey talked also about how dominant this team has been. Obviously, they are the number that you see the injury list there. I mean, they're the top seed right now in the NFC. But if they are ever going to be vulnerable this season, maybe it is now with all of these injuries on the defense. It's amazing. If you look back at their week 1 roster, they're too deep on the defensive line is right now almost entirely wiped out. Now, most of these are not long-term injuries. That's the good news. Obviously, we know about Aiden Hutchinson. But these are not long-term injuries. But as you said, they have had to sign guys off practice squads from other teams and bring them in. Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn talked about it this week, and he said it can create chemistry issues when there are this many new faces shuttling in and out. He said they've had to spend extra time with these guys. They've had to pare down the playbook a little bit. They've had to really emphasize what their job is and make sure they know what their role is. Again, we will see how vulnerable this team is. They have looked like the best team in football for most of this season. But this is an opportunity for Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love to see if they can go at that defense.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure Jordan Love is really that upset about the Detroit Lions injury issue. There are plenty of them, but he's going to be one of the players to benefit from that. And you know, Jordan Love is such an interesting quarterback. It's been such an interesting season for him. Obviously, battled the injuries right out of the gate. It seems, you know, all season it's sort of been like, well, when he gets right. And he really has gotten right over the course of the past several weeks, really starting to play like he is, which is one of the best and also one of the highly paid young quarterbacks in the NFL. You know, coaches will sometimes say, guys, like, you know, it's one game. When it's on prime time, when it's a standalone game, it doesn't feel like one game. I mean, these are the kinds of things where reputations can be built on what the entire country that doesn't usually sit down, let's say, to watch the Green Bay Packers at 1 o'clock or at 4 o'clock. What do they like, and what is this young quarterback like? And so for Jordan Love, there is an unbelievable opportunity here tonight with the entire country watching against maybe the NFL's best team with a defense that's vulnerable and banged up to go out and make maybe the biggest statement of his young career, to show everyone that he belongs in that conversation with the really awesome young elite quarterbacks, maybe get his team a huge divisional win in the process.
Or just hand it off to Josh Jacobs 30 times and let him run into a defense that doesn't have both its middle linebackers and several of the starting defensive linemen. I'm just spitballing here. Matt LaFleur knows a lot more about offense than me, so we will see how this thing plays out tonight. NFC playoff picture, at least in terms of the wild cards, pretty clear. Same thing on the AFC side, but there are teams like the Dolphins that still have a chance here. Tua Tagovailoa, since he got back into the lineup, has been one of the most efficient and productive quarterbacks in the NFL. The reality is, the Dolphins right now are 5-7 on the outside looking in, which comes as a surprise to their QB.
Very surprised. I don't think that shows the character of who we are as a team. Doesn't show the work that we've put in this offseason together. But, you know, nobody else will say it but me. And I feel like this has a lot to do with myself, obviously putting myself in harm's way in the second game, going down, basically leaving my guys out to dry. That's what I would say. And anyone can have an opinion about, like, it's football, it's this, it's that. You know, I do take heart to that as well.
Again, the Dolphins are not out of this thing, but they are going to need some help to get in. 2 games back in the loss column for both the Broncos and the Ravens, a Baltimore team that's got a lot of drama surrounding them right now. A surprising Broncos team that continues to get better and better. Judy, you hear Tua Tagovailoa, he's taken that on himself. Of course, he suffered another concussion, missed a good chunk of the early portion of the season, despite a lot of outside noise and urging people from people who are not medical doctors to not play again. He's been back out there, and he's played really, really well, albeit in a little bit different offense than they were running before. They look like a dangerous team is what I'm getting at, Judy, but we might not get to find out how dangerous come January.
Right, there just may not be enough time left in the season for them to catch up. It was hard to hear Tua talk like that, although it's an outgrowth of what he said when he returned, that he recognized he had to protect himself better because the most important thing for him was to be available to his team. This is an outgrowth of that. You don't have to be a football savant to recognize how different the Miami Dolphins look when Tua is playing versus when he is not playing. When he got hurt against Buffalo in week 2, they lost that game, and then they lost 3 of the 4 games that he missed with the concussion. And when he returned, they lost to Arizona. But as you mentioned, since he has returned, he has been a very efficient quarterback, and the offense has looked much more the way the Miami Dolphins offense is supposed to look. The problem now is they don't have much time. They have a very, very narrow path to get to the playoffs. The schedule is favorable. Again, Tua has to remain healthy, of course. That's the bottom line. But that lost chunk of time when Tua was injured may very well have torpedoed the season for the Dolphins.
You know, Judy, there were so many conversations, hard conversations with Tua, with doctors, with people close to him, with the team when he was on IR with the concussion, and it was all this talk about his future and should he play and should he retire. I mean, talk outside, I'm not saying inside, but that's what we all kind of were talking about while he was on IR. And this is probably the hardest conversation that Tua is having with us, with the media, with the public, which is, yeah, like he bears some responsibility for the hit that landed him on IR and for subsequent hits. I mean, it's not like he went on injured reserve and stopped putting himself out there, stopped diving, stopped lowering his shoulder. I mean, we've seen other instances, not as many, but we have seen instances of him putting himself in harm's way. This is a step. This is a good step. And when Tua is playing well, and he actually has been playing really, really well over the last couple weeks, when he's playing well, the Dolphins should be a playoff team and should be dangerous. It's really just about availability. And for him to make himself vulnerable, to take ownership, to let everyone in the locker room see and hear him say, I am responsible, I need to be better. This is an excellent thing to say publicly, and for his teammates to hear, to me, probably represents the most significant progress that we've seen.
Also, looking at that bottom line of the remaining schedule for the Dolphins, I can't think of how many times people were looking at this going, boy, Dolphins-Jets twice in the final 5 weeks of the season. That could end up deciding this division instead of Dolphins scrapping to get back in the picture. Jets long since out of it, and yeah, it's just not overcomplicated. The Bills, doesn't matter. 5 wins in a row in the AFC East. They're back at it once again. All right, a lot more to come in this show, including right after this. Cameron Dicker, the kicker, a guy who's got one of the best nicknames going back to his days at Texas, and now he's got a very big nomination on his plate as well. We will explain. We'll also have our Omar Ruiz here to talk more about that Seahawks-Cardinals matchup that could well help decide who comes out of the NFC West division. Stick with us. It's The Insiders. Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award is the league's highest honor. This year's winner will be announced during NFL Honors, a primetime award special to air nationally on Fox and NFL Network on Thursday, February 6th. Here is a look at this year's nominees.
The Walter Payton Man of the Year Award celebrates the philanthropic spirit of its legendary namesake, recognizing players who excel in community service.
It's made me a better person, it made me a better man, knowing that I can influence the community and the kids in the community. I just don't know any other way.
It is the game's highest honor, and each team's nominee has made a lasting impact on communities who need it most. Countless hours of volunteer and charity work.
It's about, wrapping your arms around a community and wrapping your arms around kids and be able to put them on a path and a trajectory that hopefully will benefit their life in the future.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
It means a lot, to me, and it's important to me to be able to use my platform to make the community better.
Listen, I put future wide receiver on there. You got to stick with it now.
The Buffalo community has made me into a different person. They've helped me, just realize the effect that I can have on lives.
Their efforts include advocating for personal causes and inspiring action to support them.
It's just such a cool feeling and just such a blessing for me to be able to help them and get them through whatever times they're going through.
It's about living for something bigger than yourself. It's about helping those who need help.
We want to provide a space that really gives them every opportunity to be great.
I'm very thankful, man, that this city has taken me in with open arms. Having a positive impact here on the community is very important.
It's not about getting the spotlight. That's not it for me. I want to make change.
Some of you guys are in foster care, been adopted just like me.
That impact, those are the moments that I think mean the most.
I want to fight for those who are struggling. I want to fight for those who are oppressed. That is just kind of who I've come to be.
To be a light in the community, and that's my goal.
Each team's nominee has worked to transform their communities in a positive way, changing lives in the process.
You get so much support. To be able to come out and give back, it's pretty cool.
To say that, I made people's lives better, especially the youth.
I got each and every one of you guys a gift card. You like the Grinch? Any way I can be an inspiration, smile, to give these kids, it's a great feeling.
That's what inspiration is pretty much all about, to something that inspires you inward so that you can achieve something outward.
It's awesome because never been able to be in this position, but being there where I'm at now, being able to give back is what I'm here for.
It's just important kids know that, I was walking those same streets and they can make it and have opportunity.
If you give without the expectations of anything being returned, that can change, alter a kid's trajectory.
At this year's NFL Honors Ceremony, one of these distinguished nominees will earn the ultimate recognition as the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year.
All 32 NFL teams today announcing their nominees for the NFL's most prestigious honor, the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, and I would venture to say none of the other 31 have better hair than the Chargers nominee, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, officially a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, and now joining us right here on the Insiders. Cameron, congratulations, man. This is a huge honor when you look at the names of the people who have both won the award and been nominated for the award. What does it mean to you?
No, I think it's awesome. It's cool to just see the commitment that I have for the community being honored, and just from the team's perspective, just seeing that and them appreciating that. And so it's really cool ability for me to have just been blessed and be able to give back and be a blessing to others.
Well, your commitment is really impressive. I was reading your bio, and you do like a million things in the community. I know you've really focused on the Friendship Foundation, working for folks with disabilities. How did you get involved with them, and why is that the one you've really gravitated towards?
Yeah, they were out here during training camp, and I was swimming some laps in the pool, which was pretty funny. So my first introduction to them was me swimming some laps, and they were just over off to the side. So I said hello that day. They were just a super fun, loving group. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do some more stuff with them, got connected, went on some walks with them. And then just every time I've had some off time, seen what they've had going on, and just tried to get involved wherever I could, just get plugged in and go enjoy some time.
The life of a kicker, Cameron, always fascinates me because this is not easy. There's one on every team. the moment something goes wrong, everybody's calling for changes here. I went back through it. I looked at the number of transactions involving you that I broke through the years. When you first signed with the Rams coming out, when you signed with the Eagles practice squad, you were on the Ravens for a minute too. Just take me through that journey and how it feels now to be locked in and kicking for a really good Chargers team.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a tough journey, but it's something that I knew was going to happen going into it. I think all specialists are in that same world where, unless you're drafted probably in the third, fourth round, even then there's changes that happen, but you're just kind of ready to go around and ready to move around the league. I lived out of a suitcase for probably 9 weeks. And so just had my suitcase ready when I was home and ready for phone calls, but it's a blessing to be here and just awesome guys around this building. So it's been a lot of fun.
Obviously, it's been a really successful season for the team, for you certainly, but for the team generally. How has Jim Harbaugh transformed life around the Chargers?
I mean, I think fun is a big word around here. He brings a joy to this building. He's just a funny guy. I mean, everybody bonds over it. Everybody bonds over him. And so he's a good dude to just be here. He's a player coach. And I mean, the love he has for us is unlike anything I've had with other coaches. So it's really cool to have somebody like him who's just so genuine and ready to go and battle for you in any way he can.
Jim Harbaugh not only changed over the culture there, but he also changed over almost the entire coaching staff, Cameron. One guy who stuck around was your special teams coordinator, Ryan Ficken, who I know is a guy who believed in you very early and wanted you to be the guy, chose you over veterans. Tell me about Ryan Ficken and just what he's meant to you in your career.
Yeah, Fick's been awesome. He's been a very big blessing for me just to be around every day. He kind of lets us take care of the things we need to. He's a hands-on coach that really listens to the guys and kind of steps back and allows you to talk about what you're feeling, what's going on. And so it's cool to have somebody like that in the building who understands specialists. And then with his assistant, Chris Gold, Beep, we call him. Beep's always out there too. And so the two of them have just been, I mean, they're a great combo. We have a really fun time in that room. And so having a fun time is just, that's what my life's about. And so I'm happy to have some coaches that respect that and want to do the same.
All right, you've got the Chiefs up next. Obviously, there's a lot on the line for both teams here. They have a history of making special teams plays that blocked field goals. When you're a kicker and you are facing a team that has a reputation for making plays on special teams, how much does that get into your head and how focused are you on that?
I don't look at it at all, really. It means nothing to me. I mean, I trust our guys, and I have full confidence in everything that we do throughout our operation, throughout the guys up front. I think it's same with the punt team, our kickoff return, with everything going on. And so I personally don't pay attention to it. I think as long as we go out and execute our job, we'll take care of business. And so I trust those guys, and I go out there and we just try to execute.
Last thing for you, Cameron, again, appreciate you being here. When you just look at the standings right now, and granted, there's still a path. You know, Chiefs have not wrapped up the division. Big game this weekend. But you quite possibly will be going to places like Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and kicking big kicks in January here. Is there anything you can do in the glory and sunshine of Southern California to try to prepare yourself for the fact that your job, more than anybody else's, might change at the most important point in the season?
I mean, there's nothing really we can do here. We're very blessed to be in this beautiful climate, so it's fun to. It's nice for us to have this, but it's also one of those things where when it comes to those games, you just got to have the cleats ready. You got to be mentally just ready to go. There's not really much you can do to prepare. It's just one of those things. You show up game day, and you got to be ready to roll.
The Walter Payton Man of the Year Award nominee for the LA Chargers. Cameron, congratulations again, man. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, guys.
Big game for the Chargers and the Chiefs on Sunday. Big game tonight between the Packers and the Lions in another division battle. Our guys Brian Baldinger and Mark Ross will be back to tell you, do the Packers have a path to winning this one? That's next on The Insiders.
Love looks to the air, throws the right side. He's got his man, Jaden Reed.
Off back, looking, throwing middle. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Touchdown, Jacobs.
Like a bolt of lightning, Jameer straight up the gut.
End zone, touchdown.
Jaden Reed, when the ball's in his hands, magical stuff happens.
Sam Laporte, the second of the day.
Oh, these guys are unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, week 14. The game is indoors, but here's a graphic with a snow globe. You know, because outdoors, maybe there'd be some snow in Detroit, but this game is inside Ford Field. Maybe it's a tribute to the movie poster for Elf. I'm not sure. Bottom line, Lions, Packers tonight. Tom Pelissero back on the Insiders with Brian Baldinger and Mark Ross. Huge game, Baldy, regardless of what the hype posters look like here. What's the key?
I'm pumped. I'm pumped for this one tonight. No, these are two of the teams that are, it's a trend league-wide now, that run the ball more than they throw it. And they really lean on the run game to get things started. So I'm looking at Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. The game 5 weeks ago in Green Bay, Josh Jacobs got off to a great start in that game, ran for 95 yards, runs just like this. The tight end, Tucker Kraft, is a great blocking tight end. In this game, they didn't have their starting center, Josh Myers. He's back. In this game, Jenkins is back at left guard. And Detroit looks a little undermanned in the middle. No DJ Reader, no Anzalone, no Malcolm Rodriguez. Like, it seems like this is a game where Green Bay should want to get the running game going. I know Josh Jacobs has been plagued a little bit by a bad calf, so maybe you get a little bit more Emmanuel Wilson. But the two of them in combination are a really good combination, and I think that's something that they're going to be looking for and doing tonight.
Well, Baldy, if Detroit is able to stop that run, it plays into their hands of the best secondary in the NFL, led by their defensive coordinator, former All-Pro corner Aaron Glenn, and mixing and matching all those guys there on the back end, led by Kirby Joseph, who leads the NFL in interceptions, but he's not even the best safety on the team. That's Brian Branch, who does everything back there. Carlton Davis has really been coming on strong. Terrion Arnold, the rookie, gets better every week. He looks like he's going to be a future All-Pro. Even Amik Robinson jumps in there, and he makes plays in that secondary. So it'll be really interesting how Aaron Glenn mixes and matches all of those guys. Tons of versatility. All those guys are tough, really good ball skills to match that Green Bay versatile playmaking group there, led by Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. And you mentioned Tucker Kraft as a blocker, but he's been making plays too as a receiver. Dontavian Wicks as well. So I think that'll just be a fascinating matchup if Jordan Love is airing it out a lot, to see how all of that versatility with Detroit's backfield matches up with all the versatility with the Green Bay playmakers there, Tom.
You know, it's interesting, Mark. In that last game, Brian Branch got hurt, and they had to rotate the safety. So Kirby Joseph went to the strong safety. His first play, he ended up intercepting Jordan Love for that pick six. Right before the end of the half, it flipped that whole game around. But, you know, in the last 2 weeks now, Jordan Love has not thrown an interception. He's taking care of the ball a lot better. And so he knows how important taking care of the football is. To your point, the secondary of Detroit has challenged a lot of quarterbacks, but that would be something to look for tonight. If Jordan Love can make those throws to that receiving core you talk about, Mark, without throwing an interception tonight.
It's pretty wild when you look at all the moves the Lions have had to make with their defense. They put 2 guys on IR this week. They ruled out 3 of their rotational defensive linemen. And oh yeah, Jamal Adams, who signed 4 days ago, has just been elevated. He's going to make his Lions debut tonight. Regardless, let's get hyped for week 14.
Yeah.
I got one game ball, okay? Look, I mean, guy's playing his ass off. I mean, guy had a pick six and then a third down pretty much to end the game.
Oh, baby.
Leo, let him win this game.
All right, let's look again at that NFC playoff picture and look at all of those NFC West teams that made their way into our graphic. Obviously, the Seahawks are in there as the 3 seed at 7-5. But the other 3 NFC West teams are still in the hunt, can't be counted out. It has been quite a season for this division. Let's bring in our Omar Ruiz, who has a huge NFC West showdown game this weekend, Seahawks and Cardinals. Omar, the Seahawks are on a 3-game winning streak, thanks in large part to their defense, but they just played the Cardinals 2 weeks ago, so they know this team very well. What do they have to do to stay aggressive against the Cardinals?
Yeah, that win a couple weeks ago, 16-6 in Seattle. Neither team taking much stock in that, but both teams taking stock in how well the Seahawks defense has been playing of late, especially Leonard Williams, who went on a tear against the Cardinals in that game a couple weeks ago. 2.5 sacks, really wrecked the game. Cardinals focusing on how to limit the damage that Leonard Williams can do, and he continued that tear, not only with a couple more sacks this past weekend, but the 92-yard interception return. NFL history for the largest or the longest pick six by a defensive lineman. He's on a roll. And of course, Kobe Bryant the week before that was the NFC Player of the Week, just like Leonard Williams was this past week. And Bryant, of course, had the 69-yard pick six against the Cardinals that helped win that game. So Mike McDonald saying, yes, those guys getting that Defensive Player of the Week honors is really a team attribute. Their entire team playing well collectively. I asked Marvin Harrison Jr., the rookie Cardinals star receiver, what he's seen differently the last few weeks by this Seahawks defense. And he said they're playing more man in secondary. They have the talent to do it, the aggressiveness to do it. The Cardinals have to be ready to combat that. But when you look at the Seahawks season so far this year, Judy, they have 2 3-game winning streaks sandwiched around that stretch in the middle of the season where they lost 5 of 6. In those 3-game winning streaks, the one to start the season and the one they're currently on, they're averaging 14.5 points allowed. In the games in the middle, they're giving up almost 30 points. So obviously they've turned it around thanks in large part to Mike McDonald and his defense. And we must note, Judy, congratulations are in order to the McDonald family, Mike and his wife Stephanie, giving birth to Jack David McDonald this week. They became parents, the youngest head coach in the NFL. So congratulations to McDonald and the Seahawks family there.
Absolutely. Congratulations to their entire family. All right, let's talk about both of these teams could be looking for a little bit more consistency on their offense. We just talked about the Seattle defense being superb. What's been the focus for these teams as they prepare for this game?
Yeah, it's a good point, Judy, because obviously with the Cardinals, they had been so good in the red zone in goal-to-go situations. They had scored touchdowns in their first 16 opportunities during the season. Been a little more struggle the past couple weeks. And talking to players this week, it's all about execution. And you look at their game against the Vikings here down the stretch. Yes, you had that Marvin Harrison touchdown, but late in the game, they had 1st and goal from the 5. They get called for a false start, gets pushed back 5 yards. 1st and goal from the 10 now. Then Kyler Murray gets called for intentional grounding, a 15-yard penalty. Took them out of essentially touchdown range. They eventually kicked the field goal, and that allowed the Vikings to go all the way back and score the game-winning touchdown. So execution, simply the focus, really an attitude that they have to punch it in when they have that opportunity for the Cardinals. For the Seahawks, meanwhile, not necessarily focusing on the deficiencies offensively. What they are focusing on are the successes they've had. When they need to score, they have. That's something that DK Metcalf said, that they need to start probably a little faster in these games. But Geno Smith has been especially good in 2-minute situations, both at the end of the first half and at the end of games. We saw him almost single-handedly there, beat the 49ers late in that one. And Geno Smith, one of the most productive players in these 2-minute situations. And overall, the Seahawks are plus 37 in that category this year, which is leading the NFL. I asked Garrett Williams, the young and up-and-coming corner for the Cardinals, what he sees from that Seahawks offense that's different when they operate in the 2-minute. And he says those Seahawks remain aggressive offensively. He said a lot of times they play teams that check down a little more in those situations, hope that maybe a player breaks a tackle and makes a big play. Well, the Seahawks go and force that. They continue to throw downfield to Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and the rest of that crew. Williams saying it is up to them to make plays on the ball themselves when they have the opportunity, if the Seahawks offense is going to be opportunistic and aggressive in that department. That's a matchup I'm going to be watching here on Sunday. Garrett Williams, one of the best young corners emerging in football, one of the best in the slot against Jackson Smith and Jigba, who according to Next Gen Stats, leads the NFL in receptions and yards, catching things in the slot. So a little game within the game there in that matchup, Judy.
It's a big game, big implications. Omar Ruiz, thank you. Don't go anywhere because we'll be coming back to you later. But first, Ian.
Ay caramba! I can't believe I'm reading this. Ay caramba! The Simpsons Funday Football streams live December 9th. This is a real thing. 8 p.m. Eastern on Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, a real-time animated Monday night football game featuring the real Bengals and the real Cowboys in the iconic Simpsons cartoon world. Again, this is all real. So let's talk about these Dallas Cowboys with our good friend Jane Slater. Jane, thank you for joining us. I know you're a huge Simpsons fan, and I really do want to do a deep dive into your favorite character, your favorite episode. There's a lot going on. But first, this Cowboys offense actually is kind of catching stride a little bit with Cooper Rush. Tell me about this Cowboys offense and where it is going.
Well, first I want to answer that question. I remember The Simpsons, is how old I am, when they were on the Tracy Ullman show. And it was like sketch-looking aspects of what The Simpsons look like now. So I remember it going all the way back to that when it was almost naughty to watch The Simpsons. So exciting to see this iteration for them on Monday. Yeah, let's talk about the offense. You know, that old saying, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Well, that's what it kind of feels like with this Cowboys team. They get their first win at home against the Giants last weekend. Cooper Rush now 2 games without an interception. And then we hear news today that Zach Martin is having season-ending surgery on that right ankle. This will be the second surgery on that ankle. He was already having problems with the other ankle. There was hope that he was going to be able to come back and play in this one, Ian. But as he described to us in the locker room today, he and Britt Brown were working out the last 2 weeks, rather, and he just wasn't responding to treatment. So they decided it was time to go ahead and get surgery. The good news is they do have Brock Hoffman there, who plays really, really nasty, and everyone feels really good about him playing there. But to Cooper Rush, you know, talking to folks in the locker room, they've noticed that, you know, he's not a guy that says a lot. In fact, anytime I do an interview with Cooper Rush, it's pretty succinct. I get a lot of questions in when I talk to him. But today I did ask him about where is it that he's hitting his stride lately? And he says he is feeling more comfortable in this offense. This will be his 5th start this season. And it was his OC this week, Brian Schottenheimer, who talked about the fact that Cooper is now feeling more empowered to say, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. Just because this particular play worked for Dak doesn't mean it necessarily works for Cooper Rush. So they're seeing him get more involved in some of the plays. I think you're seeing the fruits of that. There could be an opportunity this week, though, to run the ball more. We've seen Rico Dowdle really start to pick up some pace here. He had 112 yards against the Giants. In the Cowboys, when they see him rushing for 85 yards or more, they're 3-0. Might I add that this Bengals defense, even though they've got an MVP candidate there in Joe Burrow in this offense, the defense hasn't been doing them a lot of favors, particularly porous against the run. So this is an opportunity not only to help this offense continue some of the momentum that they've been on, but maybe go ahead and get the ball running on the ground. As Cooper Rush told it to me, you know, that's really how you get the offense going. If you can establish the passing game, but get it going with the running game, and that's what they've been doing in the last couple of weeks.
Well, let's talk about this Cowboys defense a little bit. It has actually improved over the course of the last couple weeks, but they are facing Joe Burrow, who, by the way, was the player of the month last month, despite his team not being very good. What can this Cowboys defense do, if anything, to stop Burrow?
Well, I think Micah Parsons is, as he put it, going to have one of his best games out there. He actually is excited about the challenge of Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. He said, name a better duo. He actually thinks that this game is going to be their toughest on the calendar, next to what the Eagles were for them. He just really admires the way that this team plays. But look, I think that there's been a significant buy-in, finally, of this defense to what Mike Zimmer's doing. Mike Zimmer's defense, when I talked to a bunch of players the last couple of weeks, conceding that it just was very different from what Dan Quinn was used to. They're also moving Micah around a lot more. They're actually using him in the interior a lot these days. And so Mike Zimmer, I think, is finally getting through to this group, and we're seeing that. But it will be a pretty big test when you consider the way that Joe Burrow is playing. I mean, he's got Micah Parsons' vote for MVP. That's what Parsons told us today. He said this is a guy that deserves the MVP this year.
I mean, he deserves all of the things, no doubt about it. Jane, thank you very much. That's going to be an awesome game in Springfield coming up this week. Appreciate you, as always. Meanwhile, that guy right there, Kirk Cousins, the former Vikings quarterback, returning to his old home for the first time since signing with the Falcons. What is he getting in this game? Let's talk to Baldy and Tom, who, as coincidence has it, are literally going to be at this game coming up next on The Insiders.
Falcons, Vikings on Sunday in Minneapolis. Again, the game's indoors. I enjoy it. Is that a falcon in the sky? Okay, well, that's points for that. I think that's Justin Jefferson, maybe the A.J. Terrell there. It's not going to look like that in U.S. Bank Stadium. If it is, we got a big problem. They dealt with that here once. Lions can clinch a playoff berth tonight by beating the Packers. The Vikings can clinch with a win, plus some help in the later window on Sunday. I will be there for the Vikings and Falcons. So will our guy, Brian Baldinger, who joins us again here on the Insiders. Baldy, Falcons have been sliding. They've struggled to generate offense here over these past couple of weeks. And you were also there last week, as was I, in the Cardinals game, where the Vikings offense didn't look pretty good for 3 quarters until they found themselves down the stretch. What are the keys in this matchup?
Well, I mean, it was the turnovers, really, by Arizona last week. And, you know, Minnesota leads the league with 18 interceptions. They got 2 there in the fourth quarter that kind of shut the door on the Cardinals. And they found Justin Jefferson in the second half, and he was the difference, especially in that final drive, converting a 4th and 5. But, you know, I mean, Kirk Cousins, this is his homecoming. They put it on the schedule. It's supposed to be a big deal, but he's not playing well. He was terrible last week against the Chargers. In this 3-game losing streak right now, you know, hadn't thrown a touchdown passes, but he's thrown 6 interceptions. And really, Tom, if you look at all 6 losses this year, they haven't scored more than 17 points in any of those losses. And I don't think if they score 17 points on Sunday in Minnesota, they're going to win this game. So this is a lot of pressure and spotlight on Kirk Cousins. He knew it was already going to be there. Whatever the reaction by the fans is going to be, it's going to be. But he knows he's got to play better. So the pressure's on. He's under the spotlight. He's back home at U.S. Bank Stadium. And they need a better performance, I think, from Kirk Cousins in this game. Otherwise, I mean, you might as well start looking at Michael Penix and see if he can give them a lift or a pop right now for the offense, because a 17-point offense, I don't believe is going to get them to the playoffs.
We have not seen meaningful snaps yet for Michael Penix Jr. Of course, also have not seen any snaps for the Vikings. Top 10 drafted quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who's been out this entire season because of knee surgery. The guy drafted at number 12, however, is playing pretty well.
Nix in a pistol. Here comes the blitz. He floats to the near corner of the end zone, looking for Sutton. Jump ball back right pylon. Touchdown Broncos.
Taking over and we down to take it outside. Taking over, you can tell them that it's on. Any given Sunday, I'll be on the winning team. If they won't smoke on the beat, I give them nicotine. Bars on another level. This ain't
Loads it up. He's got a home run ball. It is there. Touchdown Denver. Cortland Sutton. What a throw. A shotgun snap. Nix looks left. Floats one to the end zone. He was Troutman. One-handed catch. Touchdown Denver. 19-yard strike. Bo Nix.
Tell them that we outside.
For those who decided the Offensive Rookie of the Year award already, giving it to Jaden Daniels, I think Bo Nix may like a word with you. I mean, that was just ridiculous the other night. I mean, just big play after big play. It was, yeah, I mean, I think Bo Nix put on a display for the entire country to watch and take in and realize, you know what? This rookie from the Broncos is pretty good. Let's welcome back in Omar Ruiz and Mark Ross. Omar, I'll start with you. Bo Nix has been everything everyone hoped he would be and more. I mean, that long TD we just saw to Marvin Mims was ridiculous. Where's his confidence right now? I imagine pretty high.
It's growing, Ian. Every single week, he continues to play with more confidence. And having gotten to Denver on Saturday ahead of that Monday Night Football game, going to practice, talking with different people throughout the organization, as it was described to me, Bo Nix plays with an edgy confidence. And that edginess is something that has rubbed off on the entire team. So they are all playing with that edge. And I think we could all agree that Sean Payton operates with some edgy confidence. So they are collectively playing with a bunch of confidence. I asked Bo Nix after the game how they continue to find different ways to win. Because remember, earlier in this season, their defense really held up much of the end of the bargain, winning, say, 10-9 against the Jets. And then, obviously, they outscored the Browns on Monday 41-32. And Bo Nix kept coming. And he told me, well, they are playing aggressively. They are playing confidently. And he said they're playing like they have a chip on their shoulder. And it's not only to prove to the outside world that they are good, but to prove to themselves that they are. So at 8-5, they continue to grow with confidence every single week. They have a bye this week, and they can really put a stranglehold on that 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture because they have a 2-game lead over the Colts right now. And when they come out of the bye, they play the Colts. And so they have a chance to take a 3-game commanding lead and really separate themselves in that playoff race. But one of the things that was even more impressive about Bo Nix, not just the big numbers and throwing for touchdowns, it is the way after he had played almost flawlessly the few weeks before this past Monday, he threw a couple interceptions, but just kept coming. And that confidence never wavered. As Marvin Mims described him to me, Bo Nix is unfazable, and that was on display on Monday night.
Omar, you talk about the confidence and being unfazed, and as a former college scout, I always go back to what they did in college. And this guy played a lot of football in college, started out at Auburn, it seemed like 35 years ago, and then went to Oregon, played a lot, a coach's son. So he already had that innate confidence and ability to say, you know what, I've seen it all and done it all. And throughout the scouting process, the things that Bo Nix did really well was the short passing game, one read, get it out. And he went to the perfect head coach in Sean Payton, who, as we saw with his success with Drew Brees, those were really the things that he thrived at. So you had the perfect match of what Bo Nix did well in college with Sean Payton. Well, now what I'm seeing in Bo Nix is he's expanded on that, where you see him pushing the ball downfield a lot more, as we saw the other night, but he's done it other games as well. It's not just a short passing game. He is pushing it downfield a lot, and then also moving around and making plays with his legs. He didn't do a whole ton of it at Oregon, as I mentioned. They just kind of got the ball out of his hands quick on that offense. But now you're seeing him move around a lot and even take off certain games and make plays with his legs. So the expansion of his game with pushing it downfield and making plays, running around, I mean, this guy is a legit player, fellas.
We talked about the chip on the shoulder that Bo Nix described, how that team is operating. I talked to Quinn Miners, one of the offensive linemen, and he said he's been keeping all the receipts for the people that counted out the Broncos this season. And then I said, well, how does it feel to have that sort of gratification? He said, well, we're not ready to cash in on those receipts just yet, but they do have them. They are hoping to cash them in and make the playoffs for the first time since Peyton Manning and No Fly Zone won the Super Bowl after that 2015 season.
Omar, Mark, thank you very much. You brought up Manning. You know what? Let's talk about Manning. Not that Manning. Let's talk about the other Manning. We know that this guy, Eli Manning, has quite a rivalry with Tom Brady. If you call a rivalry where Manning just wins every time. Obviously, that happens on the football field. It is all played out on the football field. But has it played out in fishing? Yeah. Yeah, it has. Let's talk about it. Coming up next on The Insiders.
All 32 teams announcing their nominees today for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, including that guy, Larry Ogunjobi of the Steelers, who incidentally and relatedly will be joining the Insiders tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on NFL Network. Tom Brady and Eli Manning, they've got some history on the football field. Now that apparently extends to their fishing exploits. You see Tom posting a photo with that red snapper, to which Eli responded, "Cute minnow, Tom." Brady firing back. You use a helmet to catch that one, too. Tom, we all know what you were doing. The fish was irrelevant in that photo. You just wanted to show off the shirtless retirement bod. Judy, I'll let you get back to the fish here.
Let's go to our good friend Sean O'Hara, who brought up another memory that Tom probably doesn't want to think about. Dangy, take it easy. That's at least 18 1 inches.
Fishing smack is kind of where I draw the line. Like, you just put your thing in, and then however big the fish is, that's what you get. Right? Like, celebrating a big fish seems weird to me.
Ian?
I don't know a lot about fishing.
Bye.